I thought Friday night would end like always, finish the last transaction, close my father's books, go to bed. I was wrong. They came at 11. Not our men. His men. The Marchetti family. 20 armed soldiers in black tactical gear, breaking down our mansion's door like it was paper. My father's security didn't even get a shot off. I was in my study. Underground. Soundproof. Working on 50 million in weekly transactions when the lights went out. When they turned back on, I was staring at 6 guns pointed at my face. One of the men spoke. Don Marchetti sends his regards, then a hood went over my head, and I realized this wasn't a raid. This was a kidnapping. I was now a hostage in a war I never wanted to fight. I woke up in a bed that wasn't mine. Silk sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. A penthouse so high up the city looked like a circuit board of lights below. My wrists weren't tied, the door wasn't locked, but I knew better than to think I could leave. I sat up slowly, every muscle in my body aching from whatever they'd drugged me with during transport. My clothes were still on. That was something. My phone was gone. That was expected. The room was elegant, minimalist, expensive in that quiet way that screamed old money. Dark wood, leather chairs, a bookshelf that covered an entire wall. And that's when I saw them. Law books, constitutional law, criminal defense, human rights litigation. Dozens of them. Used, highlighted, annotated. What kind of Mafia safe house has a library of legal texts? The door opened. I turned, my heart hammering against my ribs. He walked in like he owned the place, because he did. Tall, late 20s, dark suit that probably cost more than my tuition, but it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Not cruel, not empty like the men who'd taken me. Tired, conflicted, almost sad. He closed the door behind him, didn't lock it, just stood there for a moment, studying me the way I was studying him. Then he spoke. His voice was controlled, measured, nothing like I expected. You're Alessandra Bernardo, Vincent's daughter, the one who handles his finances. I didn't answer. My father taught me better than that. He continued anyway. I'm Marco Marchetti, second in command of my father's organization. And before you ask, no, I'm not going to hurt you. That's not why you're here. I found my voice then, cold, steadier than I felt. Then why am I here? He looked at me for a long moment, then his eyes flicked to the bookshelf behind me, to all those law books I'd been staring at. Because, he said quietly, my father thinks you're leverage, but I think you might be the only person in this city who understands what it's like to be trapped in a life you never chose. Minutes later, he told me I could leave the room, explore the penthouse, eat whatever I wanted from the kitchen. He said it like I was a guest, not a hostage. I didn't trust it, but I also couldn't stay locked in that bedroom forever. The penthouse was massive, 3 floors connected by a floating staircase, every window reinforced with bulletproof glass. Every door had a biometric scanner, security cameras in every corner except the bedrooms and bathrooms. I counted at least 15 armed guards on the main floor alone, men in tactical gear, earpieces, watching every move I made. They didn't speak to me, didn't even look at me directly, but I felt their eyes tracking me like a target. Marco was in his office on the top floor. The door was open. I could see him through the glass walls, talking on the phone in rapid Italian. His jacket was off, sleeves rolled up. He looked less like a mafia enforcer and more like a lawyer preparing for trial. Because that's what the books meant. He wasn't just the son of a crime lord. He'd actually studied law, maybe even practiced it. The question was why. I made my way to the kitchen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the East River. The city sprawled out below us like we were gods looking down at mortals. That's when I heard the commotion downstairs. Shouting, multiple voices. The unmistakable sound of dozens of boots hitting marble floors. I moved to the railing, looked down, my breath caught in my throat. The entire ground floor was filling with men. Not 15, not 20, at least 50, all armed, all wearing the Marchetti family crest on their jackets. They moved in perfect formation, like a military unit, and standing in the center of them all was an older man, late 50s, expensive suit, cold eyes that I recognized from surveillance photos my father kept. Don Marchetti, Marco's father, the head of the New York Mafia family that had been trying to take our territory for years. He looked up, saw me standing at the railing, and smiled. "Bring her down," he called out. "Let me see what Vincent Bernardo's precious daughter looks like up close." 2 guards moved toward the staircase, toward me. But before they could reach me, Marco appeared. He stepped between me and his father's men. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "She stays upstairs," he said. "That was the deal. She's under my protection, not yours." Don Marchetti's smile didn't waver. "Is that so? And since when do you make deals with me, boy?" "Since you put her in my care," Marco replied. "You wanted her here as insurance, fine, but she's my responsibility, which means she stays in my wing, away from your men." The silence that followed was suffocating. 50 armed men stood perfectly still, waiting to see if their boss would give the order to challenge his own son. I held my breath. Finally, Don Marchetti laughed. It was a cold sound, amused but dangerous. "You've gotten bold, Marco. I wonder if that law degree of yours has made you forget who you work for." Marco didn't flinch. "I haven't forgotten anything." "Good," his father said. Then he turned to address his men. "Because Vincent Bernardo has 7 days to surrender his territory. If he doesn't, his daughter won't be coming home. Make sure he knows that." The guards moved out as quickly as they'd arrived. Don Marchetti gave me one last look, then followed them. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. Marco had just protected me from his own father. In front of 50 witnesses, he'd drawn a line that could get him killed. The question was why. He turned to me. His expression was unreadable. "You should go back to your room now." But I didn't move. I couldn't. My voice came out barely above a whisper. "You called me your responsibility." He met my eyes, and for the first time I saw something there that looked almost like regret. "That's what you are," he said quietly, "whether either of us wants it or not." The next morning, I woke up to find a tray of breakfast outside my door. Fresh fruit, coffee, pastries from some expensive bakery I'd never heard of, like I was staying at a 5-star hotel instead of being held captive. I ate alone in my room, staring at those law books on the shelf. Constitutional law, human rights litigation, criminal defense. They weren't just for show. The margins were filled with notes in tight, precise handwriting, questions, arguments, case citations. Marco Marchetti had actually studied this, cared about it, which made absolutely no sense for the second in command of a crime family. Around noon, he knocked on my door, asked if I wanted to work, said I could use his office, access my father's financial systems remotely if I needed to, keep up with my responsibilities. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You want me to manage my father's money while I'm your hostage?" He shrugged. "You're going to be here for 7 days minimum. Might as well stay productive. Besides, I've seen what happens to people like you when they're forced to be idle. You need purpose, structure, something to focus on, or you spiral." I froze. "How do you know that about me?" He smiled slightly. "I read people for a living." "You think I didn't research Vincent Bernardo's daughter before you got here?" He smiled slightly. "I read people for a living. You think I didn't research Vincent Bernardo's daughter before you got here?" That should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. Recognition, like he'd seen something in me that most people missed. "Fine," I said. "Show me your office." He led me upstairs to the top floor, his private space, floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk with 3 monitors, and an entire wall of filing cabinets that definitely weren't for Mafia business. I moved closer, saw the labels, legal aid cases, pro bono defense files, asylum applications, human trafficking victim advocacy. I turned to face him. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "You're a human rights lawyer." He didn't deny it. Was. Past tense. "These files are from this year," I said. "Some of them from last month." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a second phone, the kind you use when you don't want people tracking your calls. "My father thinks I use my law degree to help the family," Marco said quietly. "Find loopholes, defend our operations, keep us out of legal trouble." He held up the phone. "This is what I actually use it for." I stared at the device in his hand. "You're still practicing." In secret, he confirmed. "Defending the people my family hurts. Immigrants, trafficking victims, anyone who needs a lawyer but can't afford one. It's the only thing that keeps me sane." "Why?" The question came out before I could stop it. "Why risk your life for people you don't know?" He looked at me then, really looked at me. "Because someone has to. And because I know what it's like to be trapped in a system you hate but can't escape." Something shifted in the air between us. A recognition, a mirror. "You're just like me," I said slowly, "living 2 lives, pretending to be someone you're not." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. "So this is your rebellion," I said. Your little secret life where you get to be the hero instead of the villain. How noble. His jaw tightened. It's not about being noble. Then what is it about? I pushed, because from where I'm standing it looks like you want credit for helping people while still collecting a paycheck from a crime family. You can't have it both ways, Marco. You don't know anything about my situation, he said. His voice was still controlled, but there was an edge to it now. I know you're lying to your father, I countered. I know you're using his resources, his protection, his money to fund a double life, and I know that when he finds out, he'll kill you. So yeah, I think I understand your situation pretty well. His eyes flashed. At least I'm trying to do something good. What are you doing, Alessandra? You manage blood money. You make your father's empire run smoothly. You're the reason he can afford to keep destroying lives. The words hit like a slap, because they were true. I help because I have to, I said, my voice shaking now, because if I don't, my family falls apart. My little brother loses his college fund. My mother loses her home. I don't get to play hero on the side like you do. I'm trapped. So am I, he said quietly. We stared at each other across his office, two people drowning in the same river, each thinking the other had a way to shore. Then his phone rang, the regular one, not the secret one. He answered, listened. His expression darkened. When he hung up, he looked at me with something close to dread. Your father just issued a counter-ultimatum, he said. If we don't release you in 7 days, he's going to kill my younger brother, Luca. He's 20 years old. He has cancer. He's in treatment in Boston. My blood went cold. My father wouldn't. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. My father absolutely would. This is your fault, Marco said. His voice was hard now, cold. If you just stayed quiet, kept your head down, my brother wouldn't be on your father's hit list. But you had to make yourself indispensable, didn't you? The brilliant financial architect, the daughter who manages $50 million a week. Now my brother is going to die because of you. The accusation felt like a knife between my ribs. That's not fair, I whispered. Life isn't fair, he shot back. But you already know that, don't you? You profit from unfairness every single day. The crunch hit right then, fast, brutal. Get out, he said. Go back to your room and stay there until I figure out how to save my brother from the mess you created. I didn't move. Couldn't move. My voice came out broken. I didn't create this. Our fathers did. He turned away from me, faced the windows. His shoulders were rigid with tension. It doesn't matter who created it, he said quietly. We're the ones who have to live with it. And right now, I need you gone, before I say something I can't take back. So I left, walked back to my room on shaking legs, and realized that the man I'd started to see as an ally, maybe even something more, now looked at me like I was the enemy. 7 days until my father's deadline. 7 days until his brother's death sentence. 7 days to figure out if we were going to destroy each other or save each other. I sat on the edge of that silk-sheeted bed and did something I hadn't done in years. I cried, not because I was scared, but because for the first time in my life someone had seen exactly who I was and decided I wasn't worth saving. 3 days passed. Marco avoided me completely. He had his guards bring my meals to my room, left notes about when I could use his office to work, made sure I never had to see him face to face. It should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like abandonment. I spent those 3 days managing my father's accounts remotely. 50 million in transactions, money laundering through casino fronts, payments to corrupt officials, every keystroke a reminder of what Marco had said. You profit from unfairness every single day. He wasn't wrong. On the 4th morning, everything changed. I woke up to shouting downstairs, not Marco's voice, someone else. Multiple someones. I moved to my door, pressed my ear against it. Heated Italian, angry, threatening. Then Marco's voice, calm, too calm, the kind of calm that meant he was barely holding it together. I cracked the door open, slipped into the hallway. The argument was coming from the main floor. I moved to the railing, stayed in the shadows where I could see but not be seen. Don Marchetti was there again, but this time he had reinforcements, at least 30 men, and standing next to him was someone I recognized from intelligence photos. Dante Marchetti, Marco's older cousin, the family's primary enforcer, the one who handled interrogations and executions. He was holding a tablet, showing Marco something on the screen. Your little side project, Dante said. His voice carried up to where I was hiding. We've known for 6 months, cousin. Every pro bono case, every asylum application, every time you defended someone against our interests. Marco's face had gone completely blank. That lawyer mask he wore so well. So what? He said. I use my law degree to protect family interests. That's what father wanted. Don't lie to me, Don Marchetti said. His voice was ice. We tracked your second phone. We know about the trafficking victims you helped escape, the witnesses you convinced not to testify, the cases you deliberately lost to help our enemies. Marco said nothing. There was nothing he could say. You betrayed us, Dante continued. Used our money, our protection, our name to undermine everything we built. That's treason, Marco. I held my breath, watched Marco's hands clench at his sides. So what happens now? Marco asked quietly. You kill me? Don Marchetti laughed, that cold, cruel sound I'd heard before. Kill you? No, you're still my son, still useful. But there have to be consequences. He gestured to two of his guards. They moved forward, grabbed Marco by the arms. Take him to the basement, Don Marchetti ordered. Let him think about his choices for a few hours. No food, no water, and make sure the girl hears every word of what we discuss. They dragged Marco toward the stairs. He didn't fight, didn't struggle, just let them take him like he'd expected this all along. As they passed below me, his eyes flicked up, met mine for just a second, and in that moment, I saw the truth. He'd known they were coming, known what they'd say, and he'd positioned me exactly where I could overhear everything. He wanted me to know his secret was out, that his double life had been exposed, that he was about to pay the price for trying to be good in a world built on violence. The guards disappeared with him into the lower levels. Don Marchetti turned to Dante. Now, about the girl. My heart stopped. Vincent still hasn't responded to our ultimatum, Don Marchetti said. 4 days left, which means we need to escalate. Show him we're serious. What did you have in mind? Dante asked. Send him proof she's here, Don Marchetti said. A video, but not one of her sitting comfortably in a penthouse suite. I want her to look scared, hurt, desperate. I want Vincent to see what happens when he refuses to negotiate. You want me to rough her up, Dante said. It wasn't a question. Just enough to make it convincing, Don Marchetti confirmed. Nothing permanent. We still need her alive. For now. They started toward the stairs, toward me. I ran, back to my room, locked the door even though I knew it wouldn't stop them. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my laptop, opened an encrypted message to my father. I need out. I hit send before I could second guess it. 30 seconds later, my father's response came through. 3 more days. Hold on, I'm coming for you. But I didn't have 3 days. Dante and his men were already in the hallway. I could hear them discussing which door was mine. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Dante stepped inside, smiled at me like a predator who'd just cornered prey. Alessandra Bernardo, he said. Your father thinks he can ignore our family. Time to teach him otherwise. 2 guards moved to grab me. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. That's when Marco appeared in the doorway. His face was bruised, lips split. They'd worked him over in the basement, but he was standing, and he was blocking their path. She's under my protection, Marco said. His voice was steady despite the blood on his chin. That was the arrangement. The arrangement changed, Dante said. Father's orders. Marco looked at his cousin, then at the guards, then at me, and I saw him make a choice. Take her to my car, Marco said to his personal guards, not Dante's men, the 2 who'd been stationed outside my room all week. Get her out of the building, now. You can't countermand father's orders, Dante said. I'm not, Marco replied. I'm fulfilling them. He wants proof she's scared. Fine, I'll make a video, but I'm doing it my way, not yours. Dante studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. Your funeral, cousin. He left, his men followed, and I was alone with Marco and his 2 guards. Get dressed, Marco said to me. Warm clothes, we're leaving. I stared at him. What? You heard me, he said. We have maybe 10 minutes before Dante realizes I'm not making a video, before my father figures out I'm running. So move, now. This is insane, I said. Where are we going? Anywhere but here, he replied. Then his eyes met mine. You wanted out. So did I. This is our only chance. Your father will kill you, I whispered. Probably, Marco agreed, but at least I'll die as myself instead of as his weapon. He held out his hand. And I realized this was the proposition, the deal that would change everything. Run with him, abandon both our families, become fugitives together. Or stay, let Dante hurt me, Let my father wage war. Watch Marco get dragged back to the basement and never come out. I looked at his outstretched hand, bruised knuckles, lawyer's fingers, steady despite everything falling apart. I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm, real, solid. Let's go, he said. And we ran. We didn't go far. Not at first. Marco drove us to a safe house in Queens, not a Marchetti property, not a Bernardo property, somewhere neutral. A basement apartment he'd rented under a fake name months ago, like he'd been planning an escape long before I arrived. The place was small, 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, no windows, concrete walls that felt more like a bunker than a home. But it was ours, at least for now. The first night, we barely spoke, just sat on opposite ends of the cramped living room, processing what we'd done, what we'd thrown away, what would come next. Marco broke the silence first. His voice was rough from exhaustion. They'll come looking for us. Both families. My father because I betrayed him. Yours because you're leverage he can't afford to lose. I know, I said. We have maybe 48 hours before they find this place. He continued. After that, we need to be gone, out of New York. Maybe out of the country. And go where? I asked. We don't have money, Marco. We don't have passports. We don't have anything except the clothes we're wearing. He looked at me then. Actually, we have more than you think. He pulled out his laptop, opened an encrypted folder, showed me bank accounts I didn't recognize. Offshore holdings, cryptocurrency wallets, collectively worth over $2 million. I've been siphoning money for 3 years, he said quietly. Small amounts, untraceable. From cases I worked, settlements I negotiated, accounts my father never monitored closely. I was planning to disappear eventually, start over somewhere clean. You were going to run, I said slowly, even before I got here. He nodded, but I couldn't leave my brother. Luca needs his treatments, needs family support. As long as he was sick, I was stuck. My stomach twisted. Your father threatened Luca because of me. No, Marco said firmly. My father threatened Luca because that's what he does. He finds what you love and uses it against you. It was only a matter of time. But now you're here, I said. Away from him. Away from everything. And Luca is still in Boston. Still vulnerable. Marco's jaw tightened. I know. So what's the plan? I asked. We run. Your brother dies. We live with that guilt forever? He closed the laptop, looked at me with those tired, conflicted eyes. I don't know, Alessandra. I don't have all the answers. I just knew I couldn't watch Dante hurt you. Couldn't stay in that penthouse pretending to be something I'm not for one more day. The honesty in his voice hit me harder than any accusation. That's when the grace period ended. We fell into a routine over the next 2 days. Marco worked on securing fake passports through his legal contacts. I managed what I could of my father's accounts remotely, trying to make it look like everything was normal so he wouldn't realize I'd gone dark. But proximity breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds conflict. The second morning I woke up to find Marco making breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. He'd gone out early to a bodega 2 blocks away, risked being seen to get food. You shouldn't have left, I said. What if someone recognized you? I was careful, he replied, and we need to eat. I don't need you to take care of me, I snapped. I'm not helpless. He set down the spatula, looked at me with that measured lawyer expression. I know you're not helpless, Alessandra. I was making breakfast for both of us. Not just you. But that's what you do, isn't it? I pushed. You help people, save people, make yourself indispensable so you feel needed. It's your whole identity. His eyes narrowed. That's rich, coming from you. The daughter who built her entire worth around being the only one who can manage her father's empire. At least I admit what I am. I shot back. I don't pretend to be noble while profiting from crime. You want to be seen as the good son and the righteous lawyer? You can't be both, Marco. And you want to be seen as the trapped victim, he countered. But you had choices, Alessandra. You could have walked away from your father years ago. You stayed because being special, being needed, being the irreplaceable financial genius, gave you an identity you were too scared to find anywhere else. The words landed like knives, because they were true. I turned away from him. My voice came out cold. I'm not hungry anymore. I heard him move closer, felt him standing right behind me. Running away from this conversation doesn't change the truth, he said quietly. We're both trapped by the same thing. The need to be significant, to matter, to be more than ordinary. Don't psychoanalyze me, I said. I'm not. he replied. I'm describing myself as much as you. I turned to face him. We were inches apart in that tiny kitchen, close enough that I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the bruises still healing on his face. Then maybe we're both broken, I whispered. Maybe, he agreed, or maybe we're just human. Something shifted between us then, the anger bleeding into something else. Understanding, recognition, the mirror effect that had been there since the first time he walked into my room. That night we were sharing the only bed, not touching, just lying side by side in the dark because there was nowhere else to sleep, and we were both too exhausted to care about propriety. I can't stop thinking about Luca, Marco said suddenly, his voice barely audible. He's alone in Boston, vulnerable, and I abandoned him. You didn't abandon him, I said. You're trying to survive. Same thing, he replied. I chose myself over him. That's abandonment. I rolled over to face him. You chose not to die. There's a difference. Is there? He asked. Because from where I'm lying, I'm a coward who ran while my little brother faces execution because of a war I could have stopped. You couldn't have stopped anything, I said. This war started before either of us were born. But I could have protected him, Marco said, his voice cracking now. I could have stayed, taken whatever punishment my father had planned. Maybe that would have been enough to spare Luca. Or you'd both be dead, I countered, and I'd be in Dante's hands. Is that what you wanted? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, no. God, no, I couldn't let them hurt you. Why? I asked. Why do you care what happens to me? I'm the enemy's daughter, the person who profits from your family's competition. You should hate me. He turned his head. Our faces were so close I could feel his breath. I should, he admitted, but I don't. Because when I look at you, I see someone fighting the same battle I am, trying to be good in a world that punishes goodness, trying to find meaning in a life that was chosen for us, not by us. The confession hung in the air between us, raw, vulnerable. I see the same thing in you, I whispered. His hand found mine under the covers, fingers intertwining. This is dangerous, he said. Not just the families hunting us, but this, us, whatever this is becoming. I know, I said, but neither of us let go. We fell asleep like that, holding hands in the dark, two people drowning together, hoping the other knew how to swim. Next morning Marco's phone rang, the regular one, not the encrypted one, which meant whoever was calling had the original number, someone from his old life. He answered. Put it on speaker. Marco, a weak voice said. Luca, your brother. Marco sat up so fast he nearly fell off the bed. Luca, where are you? Are you okay? I'm in the hospital, Luca said. He sounded terrible. Weak, scared. They came for me, Marco, 2 men, Bernardo family. They said I have 24 hours before they come back. They said Father promised them I'd be leverage, that you'd come back if I was in danger. Marco's face had gone white. I'm coming. Stay where you are. I'll protect you. No, Luca said. Don't come. It's a trap. Father is there. He's waiting for you. He said if you show up, he'll kill you in front of me. And if you don't show up, the Bernardos will kill me. Either way, I'm dead. The line went quiet. Just Luca's labored breathing. I'm sorry, Marco, Luca whispered. I'm so sorry I'm the reason you can't be free. Then he hung up. Marco stood frozen, phone still in his hand, face completely blank. I moved to him, put my hand on his arm. Marco. He pulled away, violent, sharp. Don't, he said. His voice was ice. Just don't. We can figure this out, I said. We can find a way to save him without you walking into a trap. There is no way, Marco said. He turned to face me and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Rage. Pure undiluted rage. This is your father's doing. Your family. Your blood. Marco, I started. No, he cut me off. You don't get to comfort me. Your father is the one threatening to murder my brother. Your father is the reason Luca is lying in a hospital bed right now, terrified and alone. And you, he pointed at me, you're the reason this war escalated in the first place. That's not fair, I said. Fair? He shouted. You want to talk about fair? My brother has cancer, Alessandra. He's 20 years old. He never hurt anyone. Never chose this life. And now he's going to die because your father decided you were worth starting a war over. I didn't ask for any of this, I said, my voice shaking. Neither did I, he shot back. But here we are, and I have to choose between saving you or saving my brother, and I already know which one I should choose. The words hit like a physical blow. Then choose him, I said quietly. Go to Boston. Walk into your father's trap. Die for your brother if that's what you need to do. I won't stop you. He stared at me, something like surprise flickering across his face. But if you do, I continued, it won't save him. Your father will kill Luca anyway. Because that's what these men do. They destroy everything you love to prove they own you, even in death. You don't know that, Marco said. Yes, I do, I replied, because my father does the same thing. He used me my entire life, kept me close not because he loved me, but because I was useful. And the moment I stop being useful, he'll discard me too. Marco's hands were shaking. His jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. I can't just let Luca die, he said. Then we save him, I said. Both of us, together. How? Marco demanded. We have no leverage, no allies, no way to stop two Mafia families from destroying everyone we love. I met his eyes. Yes, we do. We have me. He went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying I go back, I said. I contact my father. Tell him I escaped you, that you held me against my will but I managed to get away. He'll believe me. He'll want me home. And then what? Marco asked. Then I negotiate, I said. My freedom and my expertise in exchange for Luca's safety. My father needs me. He can't run his empire without me. I use that leverage to get a ceasefire, at least long enough for you to get your brother somewhere safe. You'd go back to that life, Marco said, after everything? To save your brother? I said, yes. Because despite what you just said, I don't think all of this is my fault, but I do think I have the power to fix it. Marco looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me. Why would you do that? He asked quietly. Risk everything for someone you don't even know. I thought about it. About Luca lying in that hospital. About Marco's desperate choice. About the impossible situation we'd both been born into. Because someone has to break the cycle, I said. And maybe it starts with choosing to save each other instead of destroying each other. Marco's expression cracked. Just for a moment, vulnerable, raw. Then he pulled me into his arms, held me so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, he whispered against my hair. I held him back, two broken people clinging to each other in a basement safe house, trying to figure out how to save a world that had never wanted to save them. But I knew the truth. This plan wouldn't work. My father wouldn't let me negotiate. And Marco's father wouldn't stop hunting us. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was a suicide pact. And we both knew it. The plan fell apart within hours. I called my father from a burner phone Marco bought, told him I'd escaped, that Marco had kept me locked in a safe house, but I managed to get away while he was sleeping, that I was scared, alone, desperate to come home. My father didn't believe me for a second. Where's the Marchetti boy? He asked. His voice was cold, calculated. I don't know, I lied. He left me alone and I ran. I just want to come home, Papa. Please. There was a long silence. Then he said something that made my blood freeze. You're protecting him, which means you care about him, which means I can use that. He hung up. Marco was watching me from across the room, saw my expression. What did he say? I couldn't answer, couldn't form words. That's when Marco's encrypted phone buzzed, a message from one of his legal contacts, the ones who'd been working on fake passports. The message was short, 3 words and an attachment. They found Luca. Marco opened the attachment, a photo, his brother in a hospital bed, surrounded by 6 armed men. Not Marchetti soldiers, not Bernardo soldiers, neutral mercenaries, the kind you hire when you want someone taken alive. The message continued. Auction scheduled for midnight. Highest bidder gets the boy. Your father bid $5 million. Vincent Bernardo just bid $6 million. They're turning your brother into a prize. Marco's hands were shaking so badly he nearly dropped the phone. They're going to make us watch, he said quietly. Whoever wins gets Luca, and whoever loses has to live with watching their family execute him. This isn't a war anymore, I whispered. It's theater. Marco looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not rage, not despair, something colder, more dangerous. I'm going to get him, Marco said. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. I'm going to that auction. I'm going to bid everything I have, and I'm going to bring my brother home. That's exactly what they want, I said. You show up, both families are there, you're dead. Then I die, Marco replied. But at least Luca lives. You're doing it again, I said. my voice rising, playing the martyr, sacrificing yourself so you can feel noble, so you can die thinking you're the hero. This isn't about being a hero, Marco shot back. This is about saving my brother. No, I said. This is about you needing to be needed, even if it kills you, even if it's stupid, even if there's a better way. There is no better way, he said. Yes, there is, I countered. We use the 2 million you saved. We outbid both families. We buy Luca ourselves. With what leverage? Marco asked. The moment we show up with that money, both families take it and kill all 3 of us. We have no protection. Alessandra, no allies, no power. Then we find some, I said. How? He demanded. We're fugitives. Everyone we know wants us dead or captured. I thought fast, desperate. Then it hit me. Your legal cases, I said. The people you defended. The trafficking victims. The asylum seekers. The ones who owe you their lives. How many of them would help you if you asked? Marco stared at me, processing. I could see his mind working. Maybe 20, he said slowly. People who got out because of me. People who'd do anything to pay that debt. That's 20 more allies than we had a minute ago, I said. You want me to put those people in danger? Marco said. People who escaped violence? People trying to build normal lives. You want me to drag them back into this world? I'm trying to save your brother, I said. By sacrificing people who already sacrificed everything, he countered. That's your solution? Use vulnerable immigrants as soldiers in a mafia war? The accusation stung, because he was right. Then what do you want me to say? I asked. That we should just let Luca die? That we should run and save ourselves? Maybe that's exactly what we should do, Marco said quietly. I stared at him. You don't mean that. Don't I? He said. His voice was hollow now, defeated. Maybe Luca's better off without me. Without this family, without the constant threat of violence. If I die trying to save him, at least he's free of the Marchetti name. That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. I said. Selfish? Marco repeated. I'm talking about dying for him. No, I said. You're talking about abandoning him, making him live with the guilt of your death for the rest of his life. That's not sacrifice, Marco. That's cowardice dressed up as nobility. Marco's face went cold, hard, like a door slamming shut. Get out, he said. What? I said. Get out, he repeated. His voice was ice. You don't know anything about me, about my family, about what I've sacrificed to keep people safe. You're the daughter of a crime lord who's never had to make a real choice in her life. Everything was decided for you. Everything was comfortable. And now you have the audacity to call me a coward. I grew up in a prison. I shot back. A golden cage where my only value was making money for a man who never loved me. Don't you dare tell me I haven't sacrificed. You chose that prison, Marco said. Every single day. You could have left, could have walked away, built a normal life. But you stayed because being special, being indispensable, was more important than being free. And you stayed in your prison for the same reason, I countered. Because being the secret hero, the tortured lawyer with a conscience, gave you an identity you couldn't find anywhere else. We were shouting now, inches apart. All the tension, all the fear, all the impossible pressure of the last week exploding between us. At least I tried to help people, Marco said. You helped people to help yourself, I replied. To feel better about being a criminal, to justify taking your family's money while pretending to have a conscience. That's what you think of me, he asked, his voice dangerous. Quiet. Yes, I said. Because that's the truth you can't face. You're no different from me, Marco. We're both profiting from blood money. We're both trapped by our need to matter. The only difference is I'm honest about it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Marco moved, grabbed his jacket, his phone, his gun. Where are you going? I asked. To save my brother, he said, without you. You'll die, I said. Probably, he agreed, but at least I'll die as myself, not as the person you think I am. He walked to the door, hand on the handle. Marco, I said, my voice cracking. Please, don't do this alone. He turned, looked at me one last time, and I saw something in his eyes that broke me completely. Resignation, like he'd already accepted his death, already made peace with it. You were right about one thing, he said quietly. We are the same. Both trapped, both broken, both convinced our value comes from what we do instead of who we are. Then why are you leaving? I whispered. Because one of us has to break the pattern, he said, and it's not going to be you. The door closed behind him. And I stood there in that basement safe house, completely alone, realizing what had just happened. This wasn't just a fight. The point where everything we'd built, every fragile connection we'd made, shattered completely. He was gone, walking into certain death, convinced I was just like everyone else who'd used him, manipulated him, made him feel worthless unless he was saving someone. And maybe I was. Maybe he was right about me. Maybe I did only care about being special, being needed, being the brilliant financial architect who managed empires. Maybe I never cared about him at all. I sank to the floor, back against the wall, staring at the door he'd walked through. For the first time in my life, I had nothing, no family, no purpose, no identity. Just the crushing weight of knowing I'd pushed away the only person who'd ever seen me as human instead of useful. The only person who'd looked at me and said, "You're trapped too, and that matters." I pulled out my phone, stared at my father's last message. "You're protecting him, which means you care about him, which means I can use that." And I realized my father had been right all along. I did care, more than I wanted to admit, more than was safe, but caring wasn't enough. Not when Marco was convinced I was just another person using him for my own needs. Not when he'd rather die than trust me. I had maybe 3 hours before the auction. 3 hours before Marco walked into a room full of armed men from 2 Mafia families and tried to buy his brother's freedom with money that wouldn't be enough. 3 hours to decide if I was going to let him die to prove he was a hero, or if I was going to save him to prove I was something more than the role I'd been playing my entire life. I stood up, grabbed my own phone, started making calls. Not to my father, not to Marco's legal contacts. To the one person who might actually be able to help. My little brother, Lorenzo. The one person in my family who'd never wanted any part of this world. The call connected. "Alessa?" Lorenzo's voice. Confused, worried. "Where are you? Papa's losing his mind. He's got people searching the entire city." "I need your help," I said, "and I need you not to ask questions." There was a pause. Then, "What do you need?" "Everything," I said. "Every favor you're owed. Every connection you have outside the family. Every person who might be willing to stand against Papa for one night." "You're planning something insane," Lorenzo said. "Yes," I agreed. "And if it works, maybe we all get out alive. And if it doesn't, at least tell Papa I died trying to be someone worth saving." Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made me believe we might actually have a chance. "I'm in. Tell me what to do." And for the first time in hours, I felt something other than despair. Hope. Fragile. Desperate. But real. Marco thought he had to die to save his brother. But maybe, just maybe, I could prove him wrong. Not because I needed to be special, but because I needed him to live. Even if he never forgave me. I had 2 hours and 47 minutes before the auction. 2 hours and 47 minutes to become someone I'd never been before. Someone who took action instead of just managing numbers. Lorenzo worked fast, started calling in favors from every person he knew who'd wanted out of our father's world, but couldn't leave without protection. 3 former soldiers who'd served under Papa but hated him. 2 lawyers who'd been forced to work for the family but dreamed of going legitimate. 1 federal agent who owed Lorenzo his life after a case went wrong. Not an army, but enough. "I'll meet you at the docks," Lorenzo said. "Pier 17. That's where the auction is happening. Neutral ground. International waters, technically. Neither family can claim jurisdiction." "How do you know that?" I asked. "Because Papa's been planning this for days," Lorenzo said. "He wanted you to hear about it, wanted you desperate enough to show up. This whole thing is a trap, Alessa. For you and for Marco both." "I know," I said. "That's why we're going to spring it first." I grabbed Marco's laptop, accessed the 2 million in offshore accounts, started moving money. Not all of it, just enough to make my father think I was still his loyal daughter managing his empire. I transferred 500,000 to a shell company, left a digital trail that screamed desperation, made it look like I was trying to buy something big, something urgent. My father would see it within minutes, would trace it, would realize I was planning to bid at the auction, and he'd come for me. Which was exactly what I needed. I left the safe house, took the subway to avoid cameras, changed trains 3 times to lose any tails, ended up at Pier 17 just as the sun was setting over the Hudson. The auction was being held on a yacht, massive, 3 stories, the kind of vessel that screamed mob money. It was anchored 100 yards offshore, accessible only by a smaller boat that ferried people back and forth. I could see Marco already boarding, alone, shoulders tense, Gun probably hidden under his jacket, but it wouldn't matter. The moment he stepped on that yacht, he was outnumbered 50-1. I watched him disappear into the vessel's lower deck, and I realized something that made my chest ache. He was going through with it, walking into certain death because he genuinely believed it was the only way to save his brother. Not because he wanted to be a hero, but because he'd run out of options and refused to let Luca pay the price for his choices. That's when Lorenzo appeared beside me. 6 people with him. Not much, but their faces told me everything I needed to know. These were people who'd been trapped, who understood what it meant to be owned by men like our fathers. "The boat is making one more run," Lorenzo said. "We go now or we don't go at all." "What's the plan?" one of the former soldiers asked. His name was Davis, ex-military, scarred, dangerous. "We interrupt the auction," I said. "Create chaos. Get Luca out in the confusion, and make sure Marco doesn't do something stupid like try to die for his brother." "That's not a plan," Davis said. "That's a prayer." "Then pray," I replied, "because it's all we have." We boarded the ferry, 8 of us against 2 families. The math was impossible. The odds were worse. But I'd spent my entire life calculating risk, managing impossible odds, making numbers work when they shouldn't. This was just another equation. And I'd already solved it. The yacht was opulent inside. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, a main deck converted into an auction house with rows of seats facing a stage. I counted at least 40 men, Marchetti soldiers on the left, Bernardo soldiers on the right, neutral mercenaries guarding the exits. And on the stage, in a chair, sat Luca, Marco's little brother, 20 years old, bald from chemo, thin, terrified, but alive. Marco was in the front row, Marchetti side, his father sitting 3 seats away, watching him with cold amusement. My father was on the Bernardo side, front row. He saw me the moment I walked in. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw the exact moment he realized what I was planning. The auction started, a neutral broker standing on stage, speaking in that emotionless tone of someone who'd done this before. "We have one asset," the broker said. "Luca Marchetti, age 20, cancer patient, brother of Marco Marchetti. Bidding starts at 1 million. My father raised his hand. 1.2 million. Don Marchetti countered immediately. 1.5. Marco stood up. 2 million. His voice was steady. Final. Everything he had. Don Marchetti smiled, looked at his son. 2.5 million. Marco's face went white. He didn't have that much. His father knew it. The broker looked to my father. "Vincent?" My father studied Marco for a long moment, then raised his hand. 3 million. The room went silent. Marco turned, looked at my father, and I saw the realization dawn. Vincent Bernardo was going to win, was going to take Luca, and Marco couldn't stop it. That's when I stood up. 5 million, I said. Every head in the room turned to me. My father's expression darkened. "Alessandra, sit down." 5 million, I repeated. "And I'm buying his freedom, not his custody. He goes free, no strings, no leverage, no families." "That's not how this works," the broker said. "Then change the rules," I said, "because I'm about to transfer $5 million to your account right now, and if you don't accept it, I'm going to send that same money to the FBI with documentation of everyone in this room." It was a bluff. I didn't have documentation, didn't have leverage with federal agents, but I said it with such conviction that the broker hesitated. My father stood up. "Alessandra, you will sit down right now." "No," I said. "I won't, because I'm done being your tool, Papa. I'm done managing your blood money. I'm done pretending I'm special because I'm useful to you." The words hung in the air. 23 years of silence, 23 years of obedience. Shattered in one moment. My father moved toward me. His soldiers followed. That's when Lorenzo stood up, blocked their path. With him, Davis and the others. Not enough to stop a war, but enough to make my father pause. "You're choosing him over me?" my father asked. His voice was ice. "Over your own blood?" "I'm choosing freedom," I said. "For all of us. Marco, Luca, me, Lorenzo. Everyone in this room who's tired of being owned." Don Marchetti laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You think you can buy freedom with 5 million? Girl, freedom costs more than money." "Then name your price," I said. "What will it take for you to let your son go? To let Luca live a normal life? To end this war?" "My son is already dead to me," Don Marchetti said. "He betrayed the family, used our resources against us. The only question is whether he dies today or tomorrow. Marco was still standing in the front row, silent, watching this play out. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw something change in his expression. Not gratitude, not hope, understanding. I'd come for him, risked everything, not because I needed to be special, not because I needed to be indispensable, but because I chose to. The realization passed between us in that moment, wordless, complete. We were both broken, both trapped, both convinced we only mattered if we were useful. But maybe, just maybe, we mattered simply because we were human. That's when the shooting started. Not from inside, from outside. The yacht rocked violently, explosions, gunfire, chaos erupting from every direction. Federal agents, dozens of them, boarding the yacht from all sides. Lorenzo grabbed my arm. We need to go. Now. How did you know? I asked. I didn't, he said, but the federal agent I called in. He brought back up. The room descended into chaos. Marchetti soldiers fighting Bernardo soldiers, both fighting federal agents, mercenaries trying to evacuate. Marco moved, fast, fought his way to the stage, grabbed Luca. I ran toward them, Davis and the others clearing a path. Marco saw me coming. His face was bruised, bleeding, but his eyes were clear. You came, he said. It wasn't a question, just a statement. Disbelief and relief mixed together. Of course I came, I said. You were going to die. He smiled, just slightly. I know, that was the plan. Terrible plan, I said. The worst. He agreed. Luca was between us, weak, scared, but alive. We need to move, Davis shouted. The feds are arresting everyone, including you two. So we ran, through the chaos, through the smoke and gunfire and screaming. Made it to the smaller ferry boat, piled in, Lorenzo at the helm. The yacht exploded behind us, not from the firefight. Someone had triggered charges, destroying evidence, covering tracks. We watched it burn as we sped away. My father was still on that boat, Don Marchetti too. Whether they escaped or died, I didn't know. And in that moment, I didn't care. Because I was alive. Marco was alive. Luca was alive. And we were free. Marco collapsed onto the deck of the ferry, exhausted, bleeding, but breathing. I sat down next to him, our shoulders touching. You saved my brother, he said quietly. We saved your brother, I corrected. He looked at me then, really looked at me. Not the daughter of a crime lord, not the financial genius, not the woman who needed to be special. Just me. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet, I said. We're fugitives now. Both families will hunt us. The FBI will want us for questioning. We have maybe a day before this catches up to us. Then we have a day to figure it out, Marco said. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining, and I realized something that took my breath away. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running toward being special. I was running toward being free. Was that enough? We ended up in a motel outside Philadelphia, the kind of place that didn't ask questions if you paid cash. 2 rooms, one for Luca to rest, one for Marco and me to figure out what came next. Lorenzo had disappeared after dropping us off, said he needed to go back, face our father, try to salvage what was left of the family business before it imploded completely. Before I could argue, he was gone. Which left the 3 of us, 2 fugitives and a sick kid who just watched his entire world burn down. The first night, Marco stayed with Luca, made sure he took his medications, checked his vitals, called a doctor he trusted who agreed to come check on him, no questions asked. I stayed in the other room, alone with my thoughts, with the enormity of what we'd done. I'd betrayed my father, stolen his money, helped his enemies escape, destroyed any chance of ever going home. And somehow I felt lighter than I had in years. The second morning, Marco knocked on my door, looked exhausted, hadn't slept, but there was something different in his eyes. Peace, fragile, new, but real. Luca's stable, he said. The doctor said he can travel in a few days. We need to figure out where we're going. I gestured for him to come in. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful to keep distance between us, like he wasn't sure what we were anymore. I've been thinking, Marco said quietly, about what you said, about me needing to be needed, about playing the martyr. You were right, he continued. I've spent my entire life trying to prove I'm worth something by saving people, by being indispensable, by sacrificing myself so I could feel noble. But watching you walk onto that yacht, he said, his voice cracking slightly, knowing you risked everything not because you had to, but because you chose to. That changed something. He looked at me then, vulnerable, open. I realized I don't want to die to prove I matter, he said. I want to live, actually live, as myself, not as my father's weapon or some secret hero, just as Marco. The confession hung between us. I spent the night thinking too, I said, about why I manage my father's money, why I stayed trapped in that life for so long. I paused, gathering courage. You were right about me, I continued. I convinced myself I was trapped, that I had no choice. But the truth is, I stayed because being special, being the only one who could manage 50 million in transactions, gave me an identity I was terrified to lose. Marco was quiet, listening. But when I watched you walk onto that yacht, I said, ready to die for your brother, I realized something. Being special doesn't matter if you're not free. Being needed doesn't matter if you're not choosing it. What do we do now? Marco asked. I don't know, I admitted. We can't go back to our families, can't stay in the country. The FBI will find us eventually. Marco nodded slowly. I've been thinking about that. I have contacts in Italy, lawyers I worked with on asylum cases, people who owe me favors. We could disappear there, start over. What about Luca? I asked. He comes with us, Marco said. He needs treatment. Italy has good medical care. We use what's left of the money to get him settled somewhere safe, somewhere far from both our families. And then what? I asked. We just live as fugitives forever? Marco smiled, sad but hopeful. Maybe. Or maybe we build something new, something clean. I could practice law for real, help people legally. You could do whatever you want, be whoever you want. The possibility of it terrified me, and thrilled me. I don't know who I am without the numbers, I admitted, without managing empires, without being indispensable. Then we figure it out together, Marco said. He moved closer, not touching yet, just present. I need to tell you something, he said, and I need you to hear it before we go any further. Okay, I said. On that yacht, he said, when I saw you stand up and challenge both our fathers, risk everything to save my brother, I realized something. He took my hand, gentle, deliberate. I'm falling in love with you, he said. Not because you saved Luca, not because you're brilliant with money, or because you're useful, but because you chose freedom over safety, because you chose to be human over being special. My breath caught. And I need you to know, he continued, that whatever happens next, wherever we go, I'm not with you because I need you. I'm with you because I want you. There's a difference. The distinction broke something open inside me. I'm falling in love with you too, I whispered. And it terrifies me, because I've never been loved for who I am, only for what I can do. Then let me be the first, Marco said. He kissed me, soft, careful, like I was something precious instead of something useful. And for the first time in my life, I believed I could be both. We spent the next 3 days planning. Marco contacted his lawyer friends in Italy, arranged for fake passports, booked flights through a series of connections that would be hard to trace. I liquidated what was left of the offshore accounts, 1.3 million, not enough to live lavishly, but enough to start over. Luca grew stronger. The doctor said he was stable enough to travel, that the treatments could continue in Italy once we were settled. On the 4th night, Marco and I sat outside the motel, watching the highway, cars passing by, people living normal lives. Do you think they'll come for us? I asked. Our families? Marco was quiet for a moment. Eventually. But by then, maybe we'll be different people. Maybe we'll have built something they can't destroy. What if we fail? I said. What if we get to Italy and realize we don't know how to be normal, that we only know how to be useful? Then we fail together, Marco said, and we try again, and again, until we figure it out. He took my hand. I spent my whole life thinking freedom meant running away, he said. But maybe freedom is just choosing who you run toward. I leaned my head on his shoulder, felt the weight of everything we'd lost, everything we'd gained. My father would never forgive me. Marco's father would hunt us forever. We'd always be looking over our shoulders. But we'd be looking together. And somehow, that made it bearable. The 5th morning we left. 3 people with fake passports and one-way tickets to Rome. 3 people with no family, no empire, no identity except the ones we chose. At the airport, right before we boarded, my phone buzzed. One last message from my father. You were always my greatest disappointment. It read, not because you betrayed me, but because you could have been extraordinary, and you chose to be ordinary instead. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Because he was right. I did choose ordinary. And it was the most extraordinary choice I'd ever made. Marco saw my expression. You okay? I am, I said, and I meant it. We boarded the plane, Luca between us, heading toward a future we couldn't predict. But for the first time in our lives, it was a future we'd chosen. Not because we had to, but because we wanted to. And maybe, just maybe, that was what freedom actually meant. 6 months later, Tuscany. I woke up to sunlight streaming through windows that didn't have bulletproof glass, to the sound of church bells instead of sirens, to Marco's arm draped across my waist, his breathing slow and steady beside me. We'd rented a small farmhouse outside Florence, old stone walls, olive trees, a garden that Luca had started tending between his treatment sessions. It wasn't a penthouse, it wasn't a mansion. It was home. I slipped out of bed carefully, pulled on jeans and a sweater, walked downstairs to find Luca already awake, making coffee in the kitchen. He looked different now, healthier. His hair was growing back. The treatments in Italy were working. The doctors said he might actually beat this. Morning, he said, smiled the easy smile that reminded me so much of his brother. Morning, I replied. How are you feeling? Good, he said. Really good. I was thinking about taking the train into Florence today. There's an art exhibit I want to see. 6 months ago, that sentence would have been impossible. 6 months ago, Luca couldn't walk across a room without exhausting himself. Now he was talking about trains and art exhibits. Want company? I asked. Nah, he said. You and Marco should have the day. You've both been working too hard. He wasn't wrong. Marco had found work with a small human rights firm in Florence. Pro bono cases, refugee advocacy, the kind of law he'd always wanted to practice. He came home exhausted every night, but there was light in his eyes that hadn't been there before. And me. I'd started teaching financial literacy classes at a local community center, helping immigrants understand banking systems. Nothing glamorous, nothing that made me special or indispensable. But it mattered. Marco appeared in the doorway, hair messy from sleep, t-shirt and sweatpants, looking nothing like the Mafia enforcer I'd first met. Looking like himself. Coffee? Luca offered. Please, Marco said. Then he saw me and smiled. That smile that still made my heart skip. We sat together at the small kitchen table, the three of us, a family we'd chosen instead of inherited. I got a call yesterday, Marco said quietly, from Lorenzo. I looked up sharply. My brother, the one who'd helped us escape, who'd stayed behind to face the consequences. Is he okay? I asked. He's alive, Marco said. Your father survived the yacht. So did mine. The FBI arrested half their organizations, but the heads escaped. They're rebuilding. Smaller, weaker, but still operational. My chest tightened. Are they looking for us? Marco nodded. Lorenzo says your father hired investigators. Private security. They've been tracking us. Haven't found us yet, but it's only a matter of time. The words should have terrified me, should have sent us running again. But Marco's hand found mine across the table. Steady, calm. Lorenzo said something else, Marco continued. He said our fathers made a deal. If we stay away, if we never come back, if we never interfere with their business again, they'll stop looking, they'll let us go. It was the closest thing to freedom we'd ever get. Conditional, fragile, but real. Do you believe it? I asked. Marco shrugged. I don't know, but I know we can't run forever. At some point we have to choose to live instead of just survive. Luca was quiet. Then he said something that surprised us both. I think you should take the deal, he said. Not because they'll keep their word, but because if you don't, you'll spend the rest of your lives looking over your shoulders. And that's just another kind of prison. He was right. Of course he was right. We'd escaped the physical prison, but we'd carried the mental one with us. Always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always expecting violence, always believing we didn't deserve peace. Maybe it was time to let that go. That afternoon, while Luca was at his art exhibit, Marco and I walked through the olive grove behind our house. The sun was setting, golden light filtering through the leaves. I've been thinking, I said, about what Luca said, about choosing to live. Me too, Marco replied. What if they do come for us? I asked. What if taking the deal is just giving them a way to find us? Marco stopped walking, turned to face me, took both my hands, then we faced them together. he said. Not as the people we used to be, not as their children, but as who we've become. And who have we become? I asked. He smiled. People who choose each other, every single day, not because we're trapped, not because we need to be needed, but because we want to. I pulled him closer, kissed him under the Tuscan sun. 6 months ago, I would have calculated the risk, analyzed the odds, made a spreadsheet of possible outcomes. Now, I just chose him, chose this life, chose freedom over certainty. We walked back to the house as the sun disappeared below the hills. Found Luca already home, excited about the art he'd seen, talking about maybe studying design when he was fully recovered. That night, the three of us had dinner together. Simple food, wine from the local vineyard, laughter that came easily now. And I realized something that took my breath away. This was it. This was the life I'd been searching for without knowing it. Not extraordinary, not special, not indispensable, just real. After dinner, Marco and I sat on the back porch, stars overhead, his arm around my shoulders. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly, giving up everything. I thought about it, really thought about it. My father's empire, the 50 million in weekly transactions, the identity I'd built as the brilliant financial architect who made it all work. All of it gone. No, I said, I don't regret it. Do you? Never, he replied. Then he paused. But I am scared sometimes that I'll wake up and this will all be a dream, that I'll be back in that penthouse, living a lie. Me too, I admitted. We sat in comfortable silence, two broken people who'd found wholeness not in being fixed but in being accepted. Marco pulled something from his pocket, a small box. My heart stopped. I'm not asking yet, he said quickly, because we're still figuring things out, still learning who we are without our families, but I wanted you to know. He opened the box, a simple ring. Not expensive, not flashy, just beautiful. When we're ready, he said, when we've built a life that's fully ours, I'm going to ask you to marry me, not because I need you, but because I choose you. Tears stung my eyes, the good kind. And I'm going to say yes, I whispered. Not because I need to be special, but because with you I already am. We kissed under the stars, two people who'd escaped empires to find each other. The next morning, a black car appeared at the end of our long driveway. My blood went cold. Marco's hand moved instinctively to where his gun used to be before remembering he didn't carry one anymore. But then the door opened, and Lorenzo stepped out. My brother, alone, unarmed. He walked toward us slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. When he reached us, he smiled, tired, worn, but genuine. Papa knows where you are, he said. Has for 3 months. He's had people watching, making sure you kept the deal. Fear gripped my chest. And you did, Lorenzo said. You stayed away, built a life, didn't interfere. So he's honoring his end. He stopped the search, called off the investigators. You're free. He pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to me. Inside were new identification documents, real ones, not forgeries, legal residency papers for Italy, for all three of us. How? I asked. Papa has connections everywhere, Lorenzo said, even here. Consider it his parting gift. He'll never admit it, but I think part of him is proud. You chose freedom over power. That takes courage he never had. What about you? Marco asked. Are you still trapped? Lorenzo shrugged. Someone has to keep what's left of the family from imploding completely. But I'm working on my own exit. Slowly, carefully, and when I'm ready, maybe I'll come find you. You're always welcome, I said. Lorenzo looked at our house, at the olive trees, at the simple, ordinary life we'd built. It suits you, he said. Both of you. You look happy. We are, Marco said, then added, thank you for helping us, for risking everything. You're my sister, Lorenzo said simply. What else was I going to do? He hugged me, tight, then shook Marco's hand. Live well, he said. That's the best revenge against men like our fathers. Show them you don't need their empires to matter. Then he was gone, back to that black car, back to the life we'd escaped. Marco and I stood in the driveway, holding the envelope that made our freedom official. It's real, I said. We're actually free. Marco pulled me close, kissed the top of my head. We were always free, he said. We just had to choose it. That night, we celebrated. Small, quiet, just the three of us and a bottle of wine. Luca raised his glass, to new beginnings. Marco raised his soul to choosing freedom. I raised mine to being ordinary together. We drank, we laughed, we planned. And somewhere in the distance, our old lives burned, two empires slowly crumbling without their most valuable pieces. But we didn't watch them fall. We were too busy building something new. Something that couldn't be inherited or stolen or destroyed. Something that was entirely, completely, beautifully ours. 6 months ago, I was Alessandra Bernardo, financial architect, indispensable daughter, prisoner in a golden cage. Now I was just Alessandra, teacher, partner, free woman, and Marco was just Marco, lawyer, brother, free man. Not special, not extraordinary, not indispensable. Just us. And that, we'd finally learned, was more than enough.